Okay, so if you are spending a lot of your time studying and researching and trying to figure out how this law of assumption stuff works and really trying to understand it from all different angles, I want to remind you in this video that you do not need to know how this works for it to work. And that's what we're doing today. Stick around. My name is Hedley Dorenzi, and if you would like support with stepping into the starring role of your movie and telling the stories that you need to tell in order to have the reality that you want to experience, I am available for one-to-one coaching. I also have a free 21-day Set Yourself Up with the Ultimate Self-Concept course. You'll find all of those details in the box below this video or at my website, youaretheone.com.au, but we are just going to get straight into it. Okay, another week, another background, and this was actually one that I bought ages ago. As you know, they're not real. They're actually just hiding a blank wall that I didn't know what to do with. But I bought this ages ago and I thought it was a bit of a fail. So this is the first time I'm using it and I'm like, actually, I kind of like it. It's kind of fun. So today we are talking about how you don't have to understand how law of assumption works for it to work. A lot of people are spending a lot of time, you may be one of them, maybe not, but there's a lot of time going into really understanding how this all works. And that's great. If you want to know how this works and that's what juices you up and you feel really inspired by that, go for it. But if you're kind of getting into the back end of things and going, all right, I need to know the ins and outs of how this law of assumption works. I need this explained to me. I need the science behind it. I need the evidence. I just want to remind you that that time that you're spending doing all of that could be invested in imagining the future event and imagining that you already have what you want. Because we only have a certain amount of hours in the day. And there has to be some of that time put aside for creating your reality. Because as Neville says, imagination is either conservative or it is creative. Either way, you're using it to create your reality. Now, when the imagination is conservative, that is when you are allowing reality to inform your imagination, and that creates a conservative worldview, meaning you are creating more of what you've already experienced. So you are just setting up cycles of experiencing things that you've already experienced that you know to be true because you've already experienced it with your five senses and you can see it, so you believe it. So you're very much in that conservative cycle of using your imagination to just create more of the same. Now, imagination is also creative, but that requires a different faculty. That requires using our senses in imagination because we don't have evidence of it in our reality. We haven't experienced that which we want to experience with our five senses, so we have to do it in imagination. And that requires a different kind of focus and attention. But what that also does is that enables us to create new realities we haven't experienced. So imagination will be conservative or it will be creative depending on how you use your imagination. But if you are spending your time studying and researching and trying to figure out how this all works and what's going on in the brain as you're doing this work, you are spending time that could be spent creating new futures. I'm not a neuroscience, I'm not a quantum physicist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not any of those things. Now, I definitely went through the phase of studying all those topics and understanding what goes on in the brain when you do this and what happens when you're meditating and like with blood flow and brain waves and all of that jazz. It's all fabulous. Like if you love that stuff, that's great. And also understanding quantum physics. I really went through a long phase of that after the movie What the Bleep came out a really long time ago. And also that feels great when you're talking to people because it makes you feel intelligent and smart and has you thinking, yeah, they think I'm really smart because I'm talking all this neuroscience stuff and quantum physics and epigenetics and all of this jazz. And it's very impressive when you can roll all of that stuff off. But what I have come to know is that you do not need to know any of that for you to experience the benefits of this. When I walk into a room and I turn the light on, I do not need to understand what is happening for that light to turn on. I know the basics. So if the light doesn't turn on, there's probably something wrong with the bulb and I know to change the bulb. But that's the extent of my understanding of electricity. Really, like I do not know how electricity works. I'm sure we studied it in science in school. I can't remember it. These lights that are lighting me up right now, I don't know how they're working and I don't need to know. All I know is that they're lighting me up and that's enabling me to create a nice video for you guys. When I get into my car, I have no idea how that car works. I mean, I know the basics that if it runs out of petrol, I probably got to fill it up. I've probably got to fill it up before it runs out of petrol. If the engine doesn't work, which happened to me recently, it's probably because the battery's flat, which it was because I left the button on overnight. So I know to call the NRMA. That's really the extent of my understanding of cars. I love cars. I love driving them, but I do not know how they work, and I do not want to spend my time understanding how they work. I know enough for them to work that if they stopped working, I've got a few troubleshooting points that I can go through in order to maybe start that car again. Otherwise, I have to take it to an expert. And thankfully, I have a really good one who lives close by, so that's great. And the same with electricity. If one of my light blows, actually there's a few bulbs in my house that I wouldn't know how to change, and I'm just praying that they don't go out, because I'm like, I'm going to have to call an electrician when that happens, because I do not know how to change that bulb. Everything's getting very fancy these days. So my point is, you do not need to know how this stuff works for it to work. And in fact, if it's not your passion, if it's not your thing, I wouldn't bother with it. There's some basics that you want to understand. So with the brain, it helps when you're in the delta or theta brain waves, because that's when you're relaxed and that's when you can enter into your subconscious. But other than that, I mean, unless it really gets you going and you want to understand neuroscience, or you're a neuroscientist, or you want to be a neuroscientist, you do not need to be a neuroscientist for this to work. You do not need to have a PhD in epigenetics. Of course, some of you do, I know, and that's awesome, and I'm so inspired by that. And in fact, I can learn from you with that. But I know I'm not going to ever be a scientist or a PhD person in any of these topics. And I don't need to, because I know they work and I know the basics in order for it to work. And if it doesn't work, I also have some troubleshooting points that I can put into place in order for it to work. And that's the point. Watch how you're spending your time. Are you spending your time using the techniques, or are you spending your time understanding the techniques? And I would suggest, if you're doing the latter, then invest that time into putting these techniques into practice without knowing how they work. You do not need to know how they work. We have become so obsessed with knowing everything. We have to gather as much information. We have to get this qualification and that certificate and do all of these things in order to feel like we're using it correctly, but you don't. You can just use the techniques and have no idea how it's working, and it will still work. You can imagine your future, the future that you want to experience, the event that you would like to have with your five senses. You can go to that event in your imagination right now. You can give it the tones of reality by activating your sight, your smell, your touch, your taste, and your sound. And you have activated the reality of that event in imagination. If you hold your awareness on that and rehearse that enough times so that essentially your brain accepts it as reality and that impresses on the subconscious, it will be projected out. I don't know how that happens. I have no idea how the conscious mind impresses the subconscious and then that gets projected out. All I know is that's what happens. And I've experienced that enough times to know that that's exactly what happens. And sometimes it's easier than others. But also I know that if something's not happening, it's probably because I've got a dominant assumption running in opposition to what I want. So that's where I would use revision. Now, you can change your memory. I don't know how you can do that. I mean, I know how to do it, and I help my clients to do that. But I don't know how that works. I don't know why that works. I just know that it works, and that's all I need to know, and that's all my clients need to know, and that's all you need to know. You do not need to have an in-depth knowledge of how this is all working. Don't worry about it. It's just like the light. When you turn that light on, you're not thinking how that works. We walk over this planet all day, every day. We have no idea how gravity works. We just know that we are stuck to the planet somehow by this force called gravity. Now, I know some of you know how this works, but others don't, like myself. I am just experiencing gravity. I'm experiencing electricity. I'm experiencing my beautiful car working and driving me to where I get to go. There's so much that we don't know, and you do not need to know. Invest that time in the actual doing, in the actual application of this stuff. Forget the rest. The most important part of this is in the application. You will not get what you want by understanding the techniques of how to get what you want. You will get what you want when you apply the techniques and you go and live in the end of what it is that you want, and you make it as real as you can. You rehearse it over and over. You fall asleep to it. You live knowing that it's already done, and you get about living your amazing life and doing what it is that you love. That's all I wanted to remind you with. Forget everything else. It's a waste of time unless it's the way you want to spend your time. So I hope that helps. Please remember, you are the amazing creators of your reality. You are the superstar of your show. You are the producer, the writer, the director, and the actor in your movie. What you assume to be true will be so. So assume the best for you and assume the best for everyone in your movie too, and you will have an amazing life. And this is my wish, my vision, and my prayer for you. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure you like this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and I'd love to read some of your comments, any of your success stories, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.